Get ready for another video in Alex's garage. All right, in the garage today, we're going to go over the Dash sub harness for the 1977 MGB. This dashboard harness comes as part of a kit if you buy the whole kit with the front and the back, or you can buy it independently if you just want to redo your dash. I'll put the part numbers in the description for you. So what I've got here is some printouts of the schematics to help us identify what goes where, and I already have everything laid out here, so we can start from the center here and go to the outside. So first things off, this little connector right here goes to the courtesy light, which is on the bottom of the dash down here. All right, so on this courtesy light here, you'll notice that there's a purple and then there's a white and purple. Let me show you what the diagram looks like on the wiring diagram. Basically, purple is always hot. So if you think of it like there's going to be a circuit that's always hot, that means that regardless of what the system is doing, you can always turn it on, and the purple will always turn the light on, right? So it's just like a dome light. This is equivalent to the dome light on a regular sedan. And then you have the other purple down here, which is activated when you open or close a door. So there's two modes. You can put it in that mode, which means it's normally off unless you open or close a door, or you put it in this mode, which means that it's on all the time. The ground is the common. Doesn't matter what circuit you have on over here, as long as the ground is what's going to is always going to be common. So when you're looking at this circuit, when you're hooking these up, you can see there's three plugs. The alternative plugs here are those power plugs, and the way this thing works is it's a rocker switch. When you switch it one way, then it'll engage one of these circuits. See this little tab down here slides from one to the next. Let me see if I can do this with them still connected. Okay, so it's like that right now. And then when you move this light to the other, see how it moved? It has a pivot. It moves back and forth like this. Okay. And when it moves from one to the next, it moves from one switch. Oops. It's just to the other. It goes back and forth like that. And so that's what turns it on or off. All right. So this slides right down in there, and it's ready to go. So let's there we go. All right, and that's how that goes. So there's going to be a recurring theme here on the colors. Let me just go over that. Black is going to be ground. Pretty much every time that you see black, it'll go to ground. You'll see black on things where it's real obvious that it's just grounding it. And any time that you have a switch or a light that needs to go to ground, you'll see an accompanied black ground. So this is a light. The courtesy light, it's active even when the key is out of the ignition. You can turn the light on with the courtesy light. And so the theme there is purple. Purple, when you're looking at the wiring diagram, here I've got a little sub printout here of it. You can see all this whole section here is all purple wires. Purple wires come right off of the, here it is. Right, purple wires come right off of the fuse block at the main positive. The brown wires go right to the battery positive. The purple comes right off of that fuse block with a fuse on there. So anything that is purple, you can pretty much rely on it always being hot. It'll always have power, and it's fused at the circuit breaker. All right, so the next place where you'll find some purple wires moving in this direction is on the clock. Now the clock isn't anywhere on my wiring diagram, but it's really easy. When you have a clock in here, you know your clock is always going to want to run. so you can keep time. You don't want time to stop when you're at your car. So the clock will have a purple. And again, here's your ground wire that accompanies that. And you can see how that's just bolted, it's soldered right onto the frame of the clock. So you have constant power on the purple, you have a ground here. The other thing that the clock has is a dash light. You can see it's a dash light here. All of the dash lights have a red with a white stripe and a ground. That'll be a common theme. Every time that you see a dash light, it'll have a red with a white stripe and a ground. Okay, so the next thing up is the temperature gauge. This right here is the temperature gauge. In a previous video, we showed you that this thing worked and how to test your temperature gauge. The temperature gauge has, and this is really kind of goofy. I don't know if you can see this. The leads on the temperature gauge are green and blue, but you really can't tell. I mean, I'm not colorblind, but it's such a close hue that you'd never know that there were two colors on that wire. The advantage to this is that when you have the wiring harness and you lay it in place, these wires pretty much can only go there, so it's not a problem. The thing that you'll find on the temperature gauge as well as the fuel gauge is this light green black wire here. The light green, it might be light green. The light green and the green wire, yeah, here we go. Light green on the temperature gauge and the fuel gauge goes to the gauge voltage stabilizer. Let me jump into the dash on the car at the firewall, and I'll show you where the voltage stabilizer is and how to connect these wires with the B and the I terminal. All right, so this little device here is the gauge stabilization unit. It basically takes a 12-volt circuit and converts it down to 10 volts to give good clean electricity to the gauges that need it. And for this particular, it's the temperature gauge and the fuel gauge. And so what you can see on this is you really can't mess it up. I've isolated the two wires here and the main wiring harness. This one here is green, and this one is light green with green. So green. So the thing about the light green one is that you can see it doesn't have like a push-on tab. It has a tab, so it can only go into a female connector. And if you're looking at the device, the stabilizer, the terminal that says I is a female terminal. It's the bus terminal right there. So you can only put that one in that terminal. The one that says B will take this one with the black tab. That's solid green. So that's what this device is and where it is and how to plug it in. Okay, so that is the temperature gauge. And you can see this also has a red wire with a white stripe. And this is the dash light, so that the temperature gauge has a backlight that connects to that. Let me talk real quick about these dash lights. So here I've got one that's disconnected. These are really easy to change. So if you're thinking that you don't want to have to pull your dash apart because one of your dash lights is out, these are just so incredibly easy. You just give them a quarter turn and they come out. I'll put a part number in the description on these dash lights. So that you don't think that it's something that it would be too difficult to do. It's really not that hard to replace these dash lights. You can see there's just a little slot. The little thing goes in. The bottom connects on this little dilly bottomer at the bottom, and you have a positive connection. So that's the dash lights. Just give them a quarter turn and you're in. All right, move in this direction. This is the speedometer. See, the speedometer doesn't have any extra wires that measure the speed. It's a mechanical gear, and this is where that connection goes. The only thing you have to worry about with the speedometer is to make sure that you're not covering it with the wiring harness. There'll be a little bit of wiring management that you'll have to deal with. The speedometer has a dash light, but it's a different kind of light. And you can see this is an incandescent light that has like a crown that pushes into a little hole right here. And that's how the dash light for the speedometer is managed. I imagine that light is a little brighter than some of the other lights, which is why they changed that, because it's a much larger gauge. The next thing going this direction are the idiot lights. Now, from the bottom going to the top, I have them listed as the hazard, the brake, the ignition, and the high beams. So which on the wiring diagram are listed right here as high beam indicator, and it is UW. U is for blue, W is for white. So there's your blue and white, and it's got a black for a ground. It's just a light bulb. The next one is the ignition. The ignition is brown and yellow. You can see brown, yellow right up here. Right there, it says brown and yellow. Right there. Everything is kind of mishmashing all over the place, but that's where that would go. Okay. The next one is the brake. The brake is this one right here. It's orange, and believe it or not, that is green. When you're looking at it like this, it looks like orange and black, because there's a black one next to it. But orange and green right there is for the where did I put that one? Yeah, it's right here. Handbrake and lamp. Tiny little bit of orange right there. You can see that's where the this is GO. That's green and orange. So that leaves that one right there. And by process elimination, that leaves you at the hazard being at the bottom right here. Okay, so moving in that direction further, this is the tachometer. Now the tach has some unique connectors. First off, there's a ground. Boom, easy enough. You can see when it has a tab that's welded directly to it, it's really easy to see that that's a ground, and there's a ground right here, so that goes right there. The next one here is these kind of dark green looking wires right here, and they will go right into the one that plugs in. Now the signal, which is this black and white one here, is a unique connector, and I don't know if I can, well anyway, you're not going to confuse that. It only goes one place, so that's a slam dunk. Again, it's a larger gauge, so it has a larger lamp that goes into the little crown with the little thing, right? This is a red with a white stripe. We'll get to that in a minute. The red and white stripe thing is a theme that we'll pick up on later. We skipped over the turn signal indicators. Here you have a ground wire, and on the right hand side you have a green and white, and on the left hand side you have a green and red with obviously a ground right there. Down here is the fuel gauge. We kind of touched on the fuel gauge, and we talked about the gauge voltage stabilizer. That's where this goes. In this case, this is the stabilized wire, and then this is the signal wire back here. This right here is the oil gauge, the oil pressure gauge. This has no other electronics except for, you guessed it, a red with white and a ground for the dash light. The hazard light has a connector that fits with it, as does the fan switch. It has a connector that's made specifically for that, so you really can't mess that up. But the one thing that you'll notice on here is that there is a ground wire and an accessory lamp wire going into the hazard light. There's a lamp inside this switch that lights up behind the switch so that you can see it at night. Let me see if I got one here. Here you go. This is from an old one. And you can see that there's a little lamp inside there, and normally you'd run power down into it through the sides or whatever. They have a little connector that goes into it to get power into that. But that's what those switches look like with the light behind them. All right, so the last thing here is the dimmer switch for the lamp lights, and you can see here's all of those red and white wires coming over here to this dimmer switch, and I'll flip it over and I'll show you what that dimmer switch looks like. This switch right here is the dimmer switch. This is what will make the dash lights turn on or off and increase the brightness of your dash lights. It's just a little rheostat. When you're looking at the back, so the back of this switch, on the back of the switch you see there's two buses. One of them, you put all the wires with the white in, and then on the other one you put just the red and green wire in there. And so that switch will control the amount of current that goes through and then feeds out to the accessory lights that light up the dash components. All right, so that should pretty much cover the sub harness for the dash on a 1977 MGB. This is the end of the refit for this dash, and I'm ready to start putting this thing in. So in my next video, I'll talk about doing those connections, connecting up the oil pressure gauge, connecting up the speedometer, and installing this dash. Now you can see all the little connectors here. I had to put some replacement studs in here, so they'll be a little bit different than normal, but I'll show you how to do that in my next video. So make sure that you like, comment, and subscribe. If you have any comments at all about this video, I really appreciate all the feedback that I get from everybody who makes their comments. So that's all I got for you today. Have a good one.